Tee. Welcome to the 2019 NFL Draft Wrap-Up Series, where your man Louie Tee aims to break down all 32 teams in the National Football League's 2019 NFL Draft using our baseball grading scale, single, double, triple, home run. There are no strikeouts here in the Draft Wrap-Up Series, as we cannot tell how these players are going to pan out, and I don't want to discount any of these young men before they get their chance in the National Football League. And so, we'll get a score for each and every single one of these players in said team's draft. We'll then apply bonuses when necessary, divide by the number of picks, which will yield us a final overall score for that team's draft, and then we'll move on to the next team in the series picked by you. That's right, you, the viewer, are in total control, as this is the You Pick format. Simply be the first to leave the comment in the comment section of this and future videos in this series stating two things: the phrase next and the team you'd like to see next. An example would be Cardinals next, Raiders next, or Eagles next, Eagles fly next. Whatever the case may be, that's how you can get your team, or any team that you want to see for that matter, up next in this series, as we'll go through each and every single one of the teams in the National Football League in their 2019 NFL Draft. Here on the Draft Wrap-Up Series, we're going to start with the Philadelphia Eagles, as my man Ricky L won my college basketball bracket busters challenge. And so big ups to my man Ricky L for getting the job done there. I don't know how the hell I managed to lose that thing. I was up going into the Sweet 16, and then it all went sideways. And my man Ricky L was able to come through with the victory. And so his Eagles will start off this series by virtue of his dub in my bracket busters challenge. So that being said, let's talk about the Philadelphia Eagles 2019 NFL Draft. Only 5 picks, and I've said this before, and I said it last year as a matter of fact. Howie Roseman subscribes to the Dave Gettleman same kind of thought process and mindset going into the draft, and I call this the bread, eggs, cheese, and milk philosophy, where you just go in, you got a list of items. It could be 4 or 5, maybe 6 items. And you go into the store, you know exactly what you're looking for. You get those items and you get out. You're not looking around. You're not walking around the store hungry, end up buying some cookies and a couple of snacks. Nah, you're not doing that. All right, you're not going to wander around the clothing section. You're not going to wander around areas you don't belong. You've got a list. It's a specific list of 5 items that you're going in to get, and you're coming out. And Howie Roseman, for the 2nd year in a row, I think has really done a really good job of navigating the draft, getting players that he has identified as guys that they really like and really want to add to the roster in Philly, and then getting out. They did it last year with a very small 5-player haul. They did it again. They did it again in 2019. Only 5 selections, but these could be impactful selections nonetheless for the Philadelphia Eagles. Very heavy on offense early, and I thought they needed defense and could have had an opportunity for defense on a number of occasions early in this draft. We'll talk about all those things. Let's start off this Eagles draft with their first selection. 22nd overall in the first round, offensive tackle out of Washington State. Andre Dillard is the selection. So this year is going to be a little bit different. What I'm going to do is I've taken notes on every single player, and it's just a brief little 3-4 sentence synopsis of the player that I've watched on tape and what I've seen from these guys. And I'll give you my take on them as I read through my brief synopsis on each player, and then we'll move on to the next player in this particular team's draft. What I want to do this year is, though, go back to what I used to do when I first started this series, and I think it's something that I think it's beneficial for those that aren't fans of the team in question, or maybe even fans of the team that we're talking about. Either way, I want to go back to what I did, kind of going back to my roots when I first started this series. I always used to talk about draft needs for the particular team in question, and I kind of went away from that. I want to come back to that now because it gives us a little bit more of an understanding of what this team particularly needs, why it was imperative that they went after certain players. Maybe they didn't address a need or two in the draft. And I want to take a look at some of those in this particular draft and moving forward. So to me, and this is just my impressions of the Eagles, looking at their roster, knowing the team intimately, being that they're in an NFC East divisional foe. This is just my opinion as to what the Eagles needed going into the draft. It's in sequential order. So let's go through what I thought were needs for the Eagles going into the draft. I thought they needed offensive line help, really tackle help to be specific, because obviously you've got a number of guys that you feel like can get you through the season. If they're healthy, you're absolutely fine up front. You've got Lane Johnson on one side. You've got Jason Peters on the other side, manning the blind side. And while Jason Peters could be a potential Hall of Famer when it's all said and done, he's 37 years old. And he gave you 16 games coming off of the injury. So that was really, really good to see if you're an Eagles fan. And he was outstanding once again. But this is last year of his contract. He's 37. You needed to be kind of training the heir apparent, so to speak, and having him waiting in the wings just in case. You never know what could happen in the upcoming season. You'd like to have a guy already on standby waiting to go in and have that guy not be Big V, okay? So this to me was an imperative pick. You also got to think about Brandon Brooks coming off of an injury, a major injury himself, and you don't know what he's going to be, and you don't even know when he's going to be ready. So you could have went offensive guard, you could have went tackle. It really didn't matter. I thought you just needed help up front, and they were able to provide themselves with that. So let's take that off of the needs list, as they took care of offensive line with their first selection of Andre Dillard out of Washington State. So I still like Jordan Mailata as well. And I don't know if he's even going to be any good, but I just love the developmental project that he could turn into a big-time get for the Philadelphia Eagles. They took a 7th-round flyer on him last year, a guy that never played football, coming from overseas, and he was a rugby star. Now he's going to get an opportunity to potentially play down the road, and we'll see if he develops into anything. But you've got some stuff in Philadelphia now with the addition of Andre Dillard at the tackle position. So let me give you my brief synopsis on Andre Dillard, tell you what I think of him, and what I think this pick looks like for the Eagles. So they traded up with Baltimore and surrendering a 4th and a 6th rounder in the 2019 NFL draft to come up 3 spots from 25 to 22 to select Andre Dillard. And to me, he's 6'5", 315, and I put in my notes, a finesse tackle with light feet and a quick and effective punch. So the first thing that jumped off the screen at me when I watched Andre Dillard was the fact that this guy, first of all, he blew me away at the combine. Ran a 4.96. He looked spry, was the most athletically gifted offensive lineman by far and away at the combine. And it wasn't even close. And you could argue he was the most athletically gifted offensive lineman in the entire draft. That's not a stretch. So watching him at the combine blew me away, and then that forced me to put the tape on. And when I did, I saw a guy that the athleticism that was displayed at the combine matched what I saw from him on tape. Guy light on his feet, gets out of his stance super quick. So generally, speed doesn't affect this guy. He's not one of these dudes that you have to worry about getting beat with a guy with pure speed off the edge. Speed not going to affect him off the edge. All right, what you need to more so worry about is, can he stand up? Is there enough sand in the trunks when a guy looks to convert speed to power, catches him off balance, and then gets him on skates? Can he anchor down and eat a bull rush, put his feet down in the ground, and not allow that guy to drive him into the quarterback? But he can adjust to the inside after opening up his hips to the speed because he's so quick. He's got a great punch, so he does a great job of initiating contact and keeping guys at a distance. What defensive linemen, edge rushers, all the likes want to do is they want to get their hands on you as an offensive lineman. They want to initiate contact. They want to control the action. And as an offensive lineman, you want to keep them off of your body. You want to keep them out of your chest plate. You want to keep them outside of them getting in range to put their hands on you, because if you're able to do that, you stop their momentum, and also you control the action. You take the fight to them instead of them taking the fight to you. So he has an excellent punch, which keeps defensive linemen and edge rushers off balance. And it's a swift punch. It's quick, so he can reload it and use it again if need be. It's an outstanding punch, and I think that's one of his biggest attributes, in addition to his athleticism, is that punch is very effective. It's quick, it's rapid, and it's very, very effective. And so Dillard played in an offense that required a ton of pass pro, played in an air raid attack at Washington State under Mike Leach. And again, not a lot of run blocking. And even when he did run block, it's a lot of a soft setting to act as if you're pass set blocking, and in order to entice guys up the field to then use a delay or a draw to use the run game in that fashion. So you didn't get to see him come off the ball aggressively, blow a guy up, or drive a guy and drive block very often. You didn't get to see that from him. So I don't know if it's a necessary situation where he can't do it. I just know he wasn't asked to do it as much. Maybe at the next level, and I think that's why this 1 year that he's going to have essentially a redshirt year for the Eagles, which is phenomenal. I think that red shirt may allow him to be more aggressive in the run game, have him be a little bit more acclimated to what the Eagles will ask him to do, because, again, it's going to be a little foreign to what he was doing at Washington State because, again, a lot of pass pro at Washington State. Now, they do a lot of similar things in Philadelphia, spread offense, a little bit wide open. You got the run pass option kind of thing going on in Philadelphia. They were one of the ones that really made it. Them and of course, Andy Reid in Kansas City made it really popular to use the RPOs and things of that nature. And that's not something that is foreign to Andre Dillard. He's very, very well versed in that kind of blocking scheme. So I think he will mesh well with this football team. And if called into action early, I think he'll be just fine. But I think this redshirt year is exactly what the doctor ordered for a guy like Andre Dillard, who didn't have a lot of experience run blocking in college. And I said that he required a ton of pass pro and blocking in space, something that Dillard does very well laterally, okay? At the line of scrimmage and behind it, he blocks laterally very well. But when on the move, he will misfire at times, okay? He's not a guy that's a seek and destroy offensive lineman at this point, one that will seek out a second-level linebacker and go maul him. That's just he'll miss a lot of times. He's not very good in space in terms of locking onto a defender, getting his hands on them, and then wiping them out of the play, or even just getting in the way at times. And doesn't necessarily sustain as much as one would like to see. That's a nitpick of mine. I think he can get better at that. That's not something that's innate that you can't get better at. I think he's a guy that I would like to see sustain his blocks a little bit better. And again, I think that will come with time. So that's not something that I'm going to kill him for. His athleticism makes up for his less than ideal arm length. You know, generally you're looking for 34-inch arms or better as an offensive tackle. He's got 33 and a half inch arms, somewhere in that general vicinity. So not the longest arms in the world for Andre Dillard, but again, his athleticism and really why arm length is so key and vital is because I just talked about wanting to take the fight to edge rushers and defensive linemen and wanting to initiate contact. But also where it comes into play is when you lose to the outside with speed, or you lose to the inside with speed, whatever the case may be. You lose the battle initially, you can still win the war on any given rep. If you have a length, you can push a guy around even though he beat you around the corner. You can push him up the field and still keep the pocket intact. When you don't have longer arms, it's harder for you to get back into the play when you get beat. So generally, you like tackles to have longer arms and a little bit more reach to help them in case of an emergency. But his athleticism allows him to potentially lose off the snap and still get back into the play because he's got such quick feet and he's such a good athlete. So I like this selection. No, I actually love it. Love this selection by the Eagles. This is a pick. And when you see guys make picks that are only five, or you see teams only have 5-player draft, 6-player draft, generally it's for the here and now. They're not thinking about the future, but this is a pick where you're looking at a guy and you're assessing your roster and looking at it from a long-term approach. And I like that from Howie Roseman and company here. To me, the comp, when you're thinking of Andre Dillard, think of a guy like Dwayne Brown, the longtime Houston Texan, now turned Seattle Seahawk left tackle that has been a really good left tackle in this league for quite some time. And I could see Andre Dillard having a similar type of career trajectory as a Dwayne Brown. And so this is an excellent pick to start off this Eagles draft. In the first round, 22nd overall selection, offensive tackle out of Washington State, Andre Dillard, for me, is
hit from high, hits it deep, it is out of here!
So we're going to move on to the second round for the Philadelphia Eagles, as they had 2 selections in the second round. Last year, they traded out of the first round, allowed the Ravens to move up into the first round and select a player. And so, and that player turned out to be Lamar Jackson. And in doing so, they netted themselves an additional second-round pick in this year's draft. And so that pick became the 53rd overall selection, running back out of Penn State, Miles Sanders. So, I've already broken down Miles Sanders in my Draft Prospects 101 series, so I'm not going to do that here. If you're looking for an extensive breakdown of Miles Sanders and what he brings to the table, then you have to check out my Draft Prospects 101 series. Just go to my playlist on the Louie Tee Network, find the 2019 NFL Draft Prospects 101 series, and there you'll find every player I was able to get to prior to the 2019 NFL Draft, Miles Sanders being one of them. If you haven't already done so, what are you waiting on? Subscribe to the Louie Tee Network for more great content. That being said, Miles Sanders is a heck of a running back. If I'm not mistaken, I think I had Miles Sanders as my 5th or 6th running back in this draft class. Really talented running back. Feel like this guy has a lot of ability. And the thing I think the Eagles love the most about Miles Sanders, forget about his agility, which I think is really top notch. A guy that can stop and start, change directions like nobody's business. One of the better change of direction backs in the 2019 NFL draft class. However, I think the thing they love the most is the low mileage that this guy has. I mean, there's not a lot of tread off of the tires on Miles Sanders. Remember, this is a guy that was an all-world back in Pennsylvania, was one of the more highly sought-after high school recruits coming into the college field, chose to stay at home, went to Penn State, but had to sit behind Saquon Barkley for 3 years, or 2 years, excuse me, until he finally got his shot. He got some spare parts duty while Saquon Barkley was there, but not a lot of work, as Barkley rarely came off of the field. He also doubled as a returns man in order to also have an impact there. But this is a guy that when he got his opportunity in 2018, made the most of it. Over 1,200 yards rushing, caught the football out of the backfield, was extremely, extremely productive. And you see a lot of the things the Eagles like in Miles Sanders. As I've said, I've already broken him down. There's a lot to like with Miles Sanders. As I mentioned, the Eagles have a smorgasbord of backs. Remember, Josh Adams came on late in the season as an undrafted rookie out of Notre Dame. Obviously, Wendell Smallwood won't go away. You keep trying to shoo him away, but guys get injured, and he always seems to get pressed into duty. Josh Clement was the Super Bowl hero a couple of years ago. He's still on the roster. So I'm still waiting to see Donnell Pumphrey get an opportunity. You drafted him in, I think, the 4th round or so 2 years ago. I'd love to see him get on the football field and really know what the situation is with him. But nonetheless, Eagles have an abundance of riches. Of course, you traded for Jordan Howard in the offseason, but he's only got 1 year left on his deal, so he could potentially be one and done in Philly. So this was a necessary evil. So let's go ahead. I thought this was the 3rd biggest need that the Eagles had on their draft board. And so let's go ahead and take running back off of the list of needs for the Eagles as they select Miles Sanders in the 2nd round, 53rd overall pick. And this is what I think of the selection of Miles Sanders. And as I mentioned on my breakdown on the Draft Prospects 101 series, to me, if you're thinking of a comp for Miles Sanders, I look at Damian Williams of the Kansas City Chiefs as a guy that really I like a lot. I think I like Damian Williams more than most. I like Damian Williams going back to his days in Miami. I thought he was a really effective a backup running back there. He's now a starter in Kansas City. You saw what he was capable of in the postseason. I see a lot of those same qualities in a guy like Miles Sanders. And again, here's what I think of this selection of Miles Sanders in the second round by this Philadelphia Eagles football team. So the Eagles had another second round, as I mentioned. This is their second round pick here. That was the Baltimore Ravens second round pick that they netted by moving out of the first round altogether last year and allowing the Ravens to come up and select Lamar Jackson. This year, this was their first second round pick, excuse me. And so 4 picks later, the Eagles were on the clock again. And this time, 57th overall selection. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, wide receiver out of Stanford, was the pick. So not everyone loved this selection here. So here's my stance on this. First of all, the Eagles, as you can see on my needs, I thought it was the 4th biggest need on the Eagles draft board. And so I thought that linebacker at this point of the draft wasn't a viable option. There was no value here really to be had. And so I couldn't blame them for not taking a linebacker here. But after losing Jordan Hicks in free agency, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on, wide receiver was the next biggest need. You already took care of offensive line. You already took care of running back. So I didn't have a problem with them taking care of wide receiver. Let's take that off the list of needs for the Eagles. I didn't have a problem with them taking care of wide receiver. However, I thought better value here because I thought this was the sweet spot for receivers, and receivers started to come off the board, and he was probably the best of the rest left in this draft. But I thought there were other opportunities that the Eagles would have had to select a receiver, maybe a Riley Ridley, a Hakeem Butler, or a Kelvin Harmon, one of those types of guys that I had highly rated. I thought there would be an opportunity to get one of those guys later. And so here, I would have loved to have seen the Eagles maybe attack safety. I thought there was great value in the draft at this point at safety. Or maybe later on, they ended up going edge rusher, which I didn't think was a big need, but they ended up going edge rusher. This would have been a better spot to do that. There were better guys on the board at this point at edge rusher than the value you got here at receiver. But that's nor here nor there. Let's talk about the player they did ultimately select in Jose Joaquin Arcega-Whiteside. And so here's a guy that I look at, and I love his measurables. I love his size, and I love the way he plays the game. He's one of those guys that will go up and get the football, or as I like to say, he has that GMG, go and grown man grab type of ability. GMG, we all we got. He'll go up, put his nutsack on the helmets, or as I call a nutsack grab or a ball fragment grab, that he'll go up and go and climb the ladder and get the football and boxes guys out tremendously. Here's my assessment of J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. I got a basketball background, which features 2 parents who hooped. All right, so right then and there, you know that this guy was heavily affected by the fact that his parents, both hoopers, this guy has a little bit of a basketball background. So along with a long wingspan and strong hands that make J.J. Arcega-Whiteside a mismatch versus smaller DBs, and you see it on film. My goodness. How many times did you see this guy just simply not even run a route? It wasn't even a back shoulder fade. It wasn't a slant or any of that. They literally told him, run 7 steps into the end zone, turn around, post up the defender, and we'll throw it up to you and you can go get it. And you see him do that. The game against Oregon comes to mind where he literally runs into the end zone, feels the defender, turns around, puts him on his backside, and then just posts him up and goes up against the football. And that defender, who looks like he's every bit of 5'10", 5'11", had no chance, all right? None whatsoever, as J.J. Arcega-Whiteside just simply boxed him out and went and got the football. And his ability to box out defenders and high point the football, or as he calls it, taking the ball off the rim. So again, some more of that basketball influence in his background, as Arcega-Whiteside calls it, makes him a viable target. So even when this guy doesn't win necessarily, he doesn't have to win in the traditional sense. And I've talked about this. A wise man once told me that there's a new way to separate in the NFL. For years, you either had to be really fast or you had to be a great route runner with quickness in and out of breaks and have subtleness to be able to separate. Now there's a new way to separate. It's called size. And that's what J.J. Arcega-Whiteside does, is he separates with size. Not to mention, he's actually a much better route runner than people give him credit for, although he does struggle coming back to the football, which I'll mention here in a second. But I think he is deceptive in his route running ability, especially him getting off of the line of scrimmage. Speaking of which, I said long strides help him eat up grass. And again, I talked about him being deceptive. I think one of the ways he is deceptive is with his ability to run. He ran a 4.49 at his pro day. And again, doesn't look like he's running very fast on tape when you watch him, but he is eating up a bunch of grass with long strides. He's a strider. And so he's a guy that, to me, does a lot of things that will lull DBs to sleep, and then he'll be able to go to work on them if they're not careful. And has crafty moves in space and off the line of scrimmage. So again, he catches the football. He doesn't seem like a guy that's going to make you miss in space. You'll be surprised. Also, he doesn't seem like a guy that, can get off a jam. You might be able to press him at the line of scrimmage because he's a bigger target, give you more space to put your hands on him. He actually has some deceptiveness, and he actually comes to the line of scrimmage with a plan on how to release inside, outside to get where he wants to go on any given snap. So he does a lot of good things, and he does a lot of work early in his routes. Can be a little slow to transition back to the ball at times, which is what I just mentioned. If he's running 12 back to 10, doesn't always come back to the football as well as you would like him to, coming back down the stem of a route. And so sometimes that invites defenders to beat him to the football, maybe knock it away, maybe even have a chance to pick it off. That's something he'll have to improve upon. And then sometimes it's just how he is. He's a thickly built receiver that may struggle coming back to the football, getting in and out of breaks. He's a bigger guy, so sometimes that's a struggle for bigger wide receivers. And physical corners with length may present problems for him at the NFL level. We'll see. Again, these are all things. He saw a lot of smaller corners trying to get up in his space and delete the airspace in college, and he was able to defeat them just, if nothing else, by size. But he ran by some guys too. So there's a lot to like here. And the thing that I love the most about a selection like this for the Eagles with Jose Joaquin Arcega-Whiteside is that this is a guy that when you go off schedule, and we know Carson Wentz, when he's at his best, Carson Wentz is extending plays and giving receivers a chance to win 50-50 balls down the field. All right, we've seen him at his best create off schedule and make things happen 30, 40, 50 yards down the field. All right, in his season in 2017, before the injury, when it looked like he was well on his way to an MVP candidacy, he was extending plays like nobody's business and giving guys an opportunity to make plays down the field. You won't find a better receiver in this draft at being able to do that than J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. And so that's why I think this is a match made in heaven for the Eagles. You already have a big receiver in never, ever trust the man with two first names, Alshon Jeffrey, that can go up and get the football. But Alshon isn't J.J. Arcega-Whiteside in that regard. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside has a ridiculous 40, can get up, get the football, and come down with it. And he can do it 30, 40, 50 yards down the field. And so love this selection from that regard as well. And as much as I would have liked to have seen the Eagles maybe attack safety, there were a ton of safeties. Really, the pick of the litter was still available here at 57 in the draft at the safety position. You could have had just about any safety you wanted outside of the two guys that went in the first round. Just about every safety was still available at this point of the draft. I think that when the Eagles looked at the state of the receiver position, there wasn't much to speak of after Alshon Jeffrey. Never, ever trust a man with two first names. After Djax, who you just acquired. But he's 32, and Djax will pull a hamstring, will have an ankle injury and miss a couple of weeks. Yes, Nelson Aguilar is still on the roster, but there have been rumors about him being potentially traded, and I don't think that that's necessarily going to go away, and he's in the final year of his deal. He could easily be moved this offseason. Nothing's out of the realm of possibility. So I thought that this was a necessary evil by the Eagles, and I understand making this selection in the second round. And so the first three picks of the draft for the Eagles all on the offensive side of the football as they select a wide receiver, 57th overall out of Stanford. JJ Arcega-Whiteside, for me, this selection is so we move right along to the Eagles' 4th selection in this draft, and 4th round, coincidentally enough, 138th overall selection. Edge rusher out of Penn State, Sharif Miller is the pick. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. This is my least favorite selection of this Eagles draft. I didn't think the Eagles necessarily needed help. As you can look at my needs board, I didn't think they necessarily needed help at edge rusher. I thought that there were other directions they could have went with this particular pick. But obviously, they know their roster. They know their draft board. And maybe Sharif Miller for them, hometown kid, with a really unique skill set, was someone that really intrigued them and they couldn't afford to pass him up. Maybe he was the best player available on their board at the time, much better than any safety or linebacker that they had pegged in the 4th round at that particular pick. And so they saw this value. They thought they couldn't pass it up, and so they make the selection. But I don't necessarily love this pick, nor do I necessarily love this player. Let's get into Sharif Miller quickly. A rangy defender that exhibits inconsistent flashes of explosion. All right, so you do see this guy come off the football like a bat out of hell at times, but it's infrequent. It's not enough for me. All right, you don't see him use that speed to win enough to my liking. Miller can be stout at the point of attack, but isn't looking to shed and make a play often enough, again, for my liking. He's a guy that will take on blockers, but he doesn't disengage and get to the football. The name of the game is stack and shed, make a play, not take on a blocker and get blocked. All right, anybody can do that. The guys that succeed and thrive in this league are the guys that get off of blocks and make tackles. Miller aggressively handles tight ends in the run game, but doesn't do the same with tackles. You watch him against tight ends, and he'll destroy a tight end, take him 2-3 yards in the backfield, blow up a play, but doesn't necessarily get off the block sometimes. But just that kind of aggressiveness and violence off the snap to a tight end can disrupt the entire timing of a play. All right, but he doesn't do that to tackles. He doesn't have that same veracity, doesn't have that same ability to bully and ragdoll a tackle as he does a tight end. As a pass rusher, he lacks a plan, all right, and doesn't use his length as leverage. To me, one of his redeeming qualities is his length. He doesn't have super long, like he doesn't have Josh Sweat length, all right, but he does have length that will aid him in getting to the quarterback if he uses it properly, which he doesn't. He doesn't use, a lot of times his arms aren't locked. They aren't extended. They're bent. And he's giving away some of his leverage and some of his ability by not using his arms. You don't see him with what I like to call the latch and snatch technique, where you grab an offensive lineman and you shake him up a little bit, then you snatch him, and it propels you towards the quarterback into the backfield. He didn't use that. And guys with length have the ability to do that. There's just not enough of a move Rolodex. You don't see spin moves from him very often. You don't see a guy looking to beat you outside and come inside hard. You're not seeing a guy that uses the long arm of the law, or a pole vault, as a lot of people call it, where you use one arm to stab a guy with a bull rush, which one arm is always better than two when you're trying to get to the quarterback with a bull rush. You just don't see a lot of, he just doesn't have a plan when he's going after the quarterback. Or for that matter, in run or pass situation. I don't think he's necessarily a guy with a plan a lot of times. Miller has the tools to be a solid pro, but will need work in my estimation. All right, so I think this is one of those guys, and with the depth that the Eagles currently have, you got a bevy of guys. You just re-signed Vinny Curry, so he's back on the roster. You got Derek Barnett coming off of injury, so he'll be a guy that you're looking for big things from. Obviously, you re-signed Brandon Graham. You've got a number of guys that you really like as an edge rusher. I just talked about a guy that you drafted, I believe, last year out of Florida State, that has a little bit of talent, in Josh Sweat that you're waiting on. And so Deshaun Hall is a guy that you got in free agency that a lot of people like coming out of Texas A&M. He's on the roster too. So to me, this was an unnecessary pick. But okay, you made it. I don't love the player though, okay? But he has time to develop. That's the thing that's going to really benefit him, is that you're not looking for his production. What if Chris Long decides, I don't want to retire? I don't personally think he's going to retire. I don't think Chris Long is going to retire. So what if he's still on the roster? To me, you've got an influx of edge rushers. I didn't think this, but again, this was another example of Howie Roseman planning for the future, and I can't be mad at that. Chris Long isn't going to be around forever. Some of these other guys aren't going to be. Deshaun Hall may not even make the roster. Josh Sweat may turn out to be a bust. You don't know what you're going to get with some of these players. So, I mean, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Brandon Graham, what is he, 30, 31, 32, somewhere in there. Brandon Graham's not a spring chicken. So I understand from that perspective. I don't see it. But again, he could develop into an animal. He's got all the talent that's necessary. He's got length. He's got size, pause. He's got quickness. He's got explosion. He just needs to hone all of this stuff and fine tune it and come up with a plan. And if he's able to do that, I think you might have something here. This guy was very, very close to being a single, I swear. But in the 4th round, 138th overall selection, edge rusher out of Penn State, Sharif Miller, for me, is... So we finish up this Eagles draft in the 5th round, 167th overall selection. Quarterback out of Northwestern, Clayton Thorson is the selection. So this is a guy that I actually like. Clayton Thorson is a developmental quarterback that is nobody's starter, and you're not drafting him to be as such. You're drafting him to compete. He's guaranteed nothing on this Eagles roster. We've seen in the past, however, that the Eagles aren't afraid to carry 3 quarterbacks on their roster. We've seen that, all right? Now, will they do that this year? That remains to be seen. Obviously, Carson Wentz has not been able to stay healthy each of the last 2 seasons, and because of that, you have to worry about potentially having a 3rd quarterback on the roster, but I don't think anyone's going to be fighting you over Clayton Thorson, all right? Especially if he didn't get a bunch of reps in the preseason, and if he doesn't tear it up, you could easily stash him away on the practice squad, and if you need to elevate another quarterback, he'll be there for you. But in any event, each of the last 2 seasons, you've carried 3 quarterbacks on your roster, so it's not out of the realm of possibility that Clayton Thorson comes in, competes, doesn't win the backup quarterback position, which I don't expect him to win over Nate Sudfeld, but does end up on the roster as a 3rd quarterback, as a developmental guy. I could easily see him not making the roster, being on the practice squad and developing there. Either way, depends on how the Eagles are strapped for roster spots or not, will probably determine his fate, whether he makes this roster or not. And maybe his play in the preseason may ultimately determine whether he makes this team or not. If he lights it up in the preseason and gets to show his skills and is able to garner attention around the league, maybe the Eagles aren't able to stash him away on the practice squad. Maybe he's not able to clear waivers and allow the Eagles to put him on their practice squad. So all of these things have to be taken into consideration when you draft a quarterback, especially one like Clayton Thorson, who I think has everything you're looking for to be a quality backup in this league. Let's take quarterback off the list of needs for the Eagles as they attack this with their 5th and final selection in this draft. So you see 2 positions not taken care of. We'll talk about those before we get out of here. But in any event, this is what I wrote down for Clayton Thorson. Smart, tough, competitive quarterback that has an adequate arm, won't blow anyone away with his arm talent, all right? And functional mobility. So he's a solid athlete, again, not going to wow anybody with what he's doing with his legs nor his arm, all right? That being said, he doesn't process what the defense is doing to him quick enough. So you'll see a guy that if his first read isn't there, he struggles coming off of that first read and getting to his 2nd or 3rd read or to the check down. He struggles getting through his progressions quickly. You see that on tape. You see a guy that constantly gets stuck on read 1. And maybe to that extent, This is a guy that gets sacked a ton. Now, his offensive line to me was not great at Northwestern, and he got his ass beat at Northwestern. But some of it was his own doing, not reading the field well, not going through his progressions fast enough to get rid of the football. Some of that is on the quarterback at times. A lot of times when quarterbacks are sacked a ton, we're quick to blame the offensive line, and sometimes rightfully so. But in other instances, it's on the quarterback, and it's his job to get rid of the football. Clayton Thorson doesn't always do that the best, which leads to sacks and turnovers, because sometimes he will force the football into tight spaces where it doesn't belong because he's trying to get rid of the football, or he's locking on to that number one read and trying to force it into a hole that it shouldn't go. Either way, however, his size at 6'4", 222, coupled with experience, this is a guy that was a 4-year starter at Northwestern, and his toughness will give Thorson a chance to be a quality NFL backup. I look at him, and just to go back one player to Sharif Miller, a comp for Sharif Miller to me is Charles Harris, the edge rusher in Miami out of Missouri that was a first-round pick by the Miami Dolphins. I did not like Charles Harris coming out of Missouri. I believe he was a first-round pick 2 years ago in 2017. I didn't like him coming out of Missouri. Thought he was a big-time project. Thought the Dolphins wasted a first-round pick. He has done next to nothing in the league since getting in. I see a lot of the same qualities in Sharif Miller. And so let's fast forward back to Clayton Thorson. I look at another Northwestern quarterback that has had an opportunity to start in this league and has failed miserably, but I think is a quality backup potentially, in Trevor Siemian. That to me is the comp for Clayton Thorson, a guy that has all the tools necessary to play at a relatively high level in the NFL, but is going to be mistake prone. As we saw, Trevor Siemian turned it over a bunch. Has everything you're looking for in terms of toughness, enough arm strength to get the football where it needs to go, enough athleticism to escape the pocket. However, going to turn it over because he doesn't read the field all that well, and he doesn't come off of progressions quick enough. And so he'll get himself into some trouble. But when he's protected, when he's comfortable, when he sees it well, he can make some plays. This is a guy, remember, that led Northwestern to the Big Ten championship game versus Ohio State last season. So he's not a chump. All right, this guy can play. He's got some faults, but that's why he's sitting here in the 5th round as a backup quarterback for you and an option here. So I like Clayton Thorson. I think it's a solid way to end up this draft if you're the Philadelphia Eagles in the 5th round. 167th pick overall. Quarterback Clayton Thorson for me is all right. So let's address the two things that I didn't think the Eagles handled in this draft. The first of which I thought the second biggest need coming into the draft for me was linebacker. And I think Jim Schwartz, and I could be wrong here. I'm drawing an inference from what I've seen. I don't think Jim Schwartz really values the linebacker position all that much. You lost Jordan Hicks in the offseason, and he ends up in Arizona. And Jordan Hicks, when healthy, and that was always a problem for him, staying healthy, when healthy, was a playmaking linebacker. We've seen him make plays in Philadelphia's defense. However, I think they felt comfortable moving on from Jordan Hicks. Nigel Bradham, I feel like Jim Schwartz is like, as long as I got Nigel Bradham, I'm good. We'll plug in, Grugier Hill or whoever the hell else. I think you signed A.J. Fort in free agency. I think he's perfectly fine with just plugging in another guy. And then after the draft, I think you actually got yourself a quality football player that if you're playing him on first and second downs can really help you in Zach Brown, formerly of the Washington Redskins, formerly of the Buffalo Bills and Tennessee Titans. Highly athletically gifted linebacker that can run, make plays on the other side of the line of scrimmage. He's just terrible in coverage. If you take him off the field on third downs, he'll do wonders for you on first and second down as a run-stopping linebacker that is a very physical presence in the run game in addition to having tremendous athletic exploits and gifts. So maybe the Eagles all along thought that if there was value at linebacker, we'll take one. But if there isn't, we're not going to reach in what was a very weak linebacker class. We're not reaching for a linebacker in this draft. If we can find a way to get through this draft, not take a linebacker, feel good about our picks, Zach Brown is still sitting out there as an option, and they went ahead and signed him to a 1-year deal. And so he's going to fill that void at linebacker. And so Linebacker, not that big of a deal now. But safety was another one I thought you could have addressed. I know you signed Andrew Sendejo in the offseason, and you've got a number of other guys that you may like at that position. But I just, look, Malcolm Jenkins never gets hurt. It's like he's ageless back there. He never gets injured, doesn't miss time. I like your other safety that you got from the Rams a couple of years ago. When he's healthy, he's been really good for you in McLeod. But when I look at this Eagles secondary, at any time, McLeod could go down, Jenkins could go down, you never know. And what you have behind them, I don't know if it's enough to get you excited. There was plenty of safety depth at that second round where you had two selections. Either one of those could have turned into a really good playmaking safety for you that could have been a big-time get for you for years to come. You may be able to avoid injury at safety and not even have to worry about it, and maybe you address safety next year. But at the end of the day, and there's still guys out on the free agent market like Trey Boston, for instance, that may be able to come in and help you if you feel like you have a need at safety. Obviously, you didn't think it was that high on the pecking order because you did not make a move at safety during the draft. I had it as your fifth best, biggest need, so it wasn't that high on my list of needs for the Eagles either, but you took care of some of your biggest needs. You took care of offensive line with your first pick. You took care of running back, which was my third biggest need, or wide receiver. I think running back was my third biggest need after linebacker. Then my fourth biggest need was wide receiver. You took care of that with your first three picks. So 3 out of your 4 biggest needs, you took care of them with your first 3 picks of the draft. And then you got a quarterback later on in the draft. So I thought you did a really good job of meeting some of those needs. And you had a really active offseason, as you generally do with Howie Roseman, bringing in a big defensive lineman. Even though you moved on from Michael Bennett, you brought in a physical presence along the defensive line in the ex-Jaguar, ex-Denver Bronco. So you got a lot of stuff on that defensive line. This Eagles football team is shaping into form. And now really it all depends on your quarterback getting the job done and staying healthy, in Carson Wentz, which we know when healthy, he's fully capable of getting the job done. Let's look at what you were able to do from a score perspective in this draft. So that's the Eagles 2019 NFL Draft wrap-up, a 2.8 double for the Eagles and Howie Roseman. And so we'll see what this amounts to for the Eagles moving forward. But that's their draft wrap-up. Got plenty more of these coming down the pipeline, so stay tuned to the series. Also, make sure you check out the Louie Tee Network podcast, available on Stitcher, Google Music Play, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, Spotify, and of course the website LouieTeeNetwork.net. I'm your man Louie Tee, signing off. Remember, if it's not your man T, it's not the best NFL coverage it could be. Until next time, I'm your man Louie Tee, signing off. Have a good one.